How's it going, everybody? Today I'd like to address something pertaining to my latest video entitled POTUS Q. Well, it just so happens that Facebook decided to write an article about it.
Looks like we made it.
Wait, what? Hoax? Yes, you've read that correctly. Facebook, or rather their constituent Lead Stories, have reviewed this video and deemed it a hoax. So much so that when you go to post it, it comes with a warning along with this editorial on my aforementioned work. Lead Stories! Just because it's trending doesn't mean it's true. This brings me to my first point of contention with said article. Now, we all love YouTube here. I've been kicking around on YouTube for 11 years, so I can say that everyone knows one thing to look for when you see a video with a clickbaity title is the thumbs up ratio. It's foolproof. It works 100 times out of 100 times. If someone posts a fake video, there will be more dislikes than likes, or they'll simply be disabled altogether. Well, after being viewed almost 100,000 times, this video has a solid 99.3% thumbs up ratio. So right off the bat, this article doesn't pass the eye test. And just to be clear, these aren't just my subscribers. According to YouTube's metrics, I calculate about 8,000 of those views to be for my subscribers. So over 99% of the 84,000 strangers to view this video disagree with the author's primary assertion. I'd say that gives me a pretty decent leg to stand on. That being said, let's go into this article. I think it says a lot about the potential motivation behind this, a motivation that I'll go into a little later on in this video. Did President Trump reveal he is Q, the anonymous leaker of purported deep state secrets to followers? No, that's not true. The claim is based on a video clip of a Trump rally in Kentucky on November 4th, 2019, in which the president says he may not hang it up for another 5, 9, 13, or 17 years. The post translates numbers 9, 13, 17 as meaning I'm Q, because the I am Q are the 9th, 13th, and 17th letters respectively in the alphabet. This interpretation ignores the 5 reference as E does not fit the claim. Contrary to the claim, the president is not actually saying I'm Q. He's just saying he might stay in the White House for another 17 years. So right off the bat, I can tell you that not only did this guy barely watch my video, he didn't even go to the source material. So this so-called debunking is mere opinion or semantics. His only point in this entire article is essentially that President Trump was simply saying what he was saying, but possibly. But the point is that for anyone who's read the Q team's intel drops, they've stated quite clearly to learn our comms. One of these comms, which was established right in the beginning, was to link up letters to numbers. It's fairly simple. 1 is A, 2 is B, 3 is C, and so on, with Z being 26. And it works all the time. It's pretty obvious at this point that Trump is without a doubt using this. One example, which I put at the end of that very video to make this exact point, was from early on where Q had actually signed a couple of posts 4, 10, 20, which if you assign the appropriate letters to them, they spell out DJT, Donald John Trump. So it's pretty straightforward. But why I say that he didn't watch my video close enough or the source material at all, not sure how you could debunk something without watching the source material, but he says that I ignore the 5 years, which is absolutely not true. In fact, I put it right on the screen for the entire time the other numbers are on display. The reason 5 is out is because that's the correct number of years President Trump would be in office if he wins his re-election bid in 2020, so 5 years makes sense. What I focused on were the subsequent aberrant numbers of 9, 13, and 17 that if you apply Q's most basic decode method, which we were all implored to look for, you get I am Q, I'm Q. So as far as a Q video goes, this is exactly what he said. It's what Q said to look for, and time again, when Q says to look for something, Trump backs them up. Like when someone asks Q to have Trump include Tip Top into his speech as a confirmation, and sure enough, Trump said this.
Also, I want to thank the White House Historical Association and all of the people that worked so hard with Melania, with everybody to keep this incredible house or building or whatever you want to call it, because there really is no name for it. It is special. And we keep it in tip-top shape. We call it sometimes tippy-top shape. And it's a great, great place.
So while this guy can say he doesn't necessarily agree with my video, he has no argument for this being a hoax. And to take that one step further, he couldn't even take the time to watch the actual clip of the rally, or else he would have seen that Trump also then says 21, which is the letter U.
Or maybe 17 years. Or maybe, if I still have the strength, 21 years. See, now they're going crazy.
So this guy writes an entire article slandering my work that pops up, compelling the poster not to post his video to their Facebook page based on conjecture, stopping it from getting more views and going even more viral than it should have without even doing 1 second of investigative research into what he was talking about. Now, the you I interpret to be him talking about us, saying that we're also Q. Basically, I'm Q and so are you. Now, the reason I left that off was to simplify it for the real message of the video. The part of the video which was conveniently not mentioned one single time in this article. Their real motivation behind this hit piece, in my opinion, is that I used it as a vehicle to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Just like ABC did by spiking the Epstein story 3 years ago, and subsequently CBS, who just fired the alleged leaker of this video, and Twitter, who squashed the Project Veritas hashtag suppressing the video, Facebook has now shown themselves to also be running cover for Jeffrey Epstein. All these institutions running cover for a monster. Why? It's clear that they've all known about it for years, basically becoming apparent that we're the only ones who didn't. But for years, barely a word until finally this summer when they were forced to after he was arrested. Remember when President Trump said we manned the airports talking about the Revolutionary War and everyone laughed, there were no airports in the 1700s, and then Jeffrey Epstein was arrested 2 days later at an airport? And what did the news do once they were forced to cover Epstein? They weakly tried to tie him to the president. Not President Clinton, who was on his flight logs 26 times. Not Prince Andrew. Not all the celebrities and world leaders with confirmed trips to his island. Nope. They did what they always do. They tried to pin it to Donald Trump, which when you look into it, you find that he is the only one on record as having banned this monster according to court documents many years ago. And then you find Virginia Giuffre's lawyer, which I put in the video, who led a case against Epstein where he says that no one helped him. Not one of these people, not President Clinton, no one. This girl had come out of hiding and risked her life to expose this guy's whole sick world, ties to royalty, world leaders, everything, and not a single person would respond to her lawyer. Except for Donald Trump, who he states very clearly gave them information that checked out and helped them. Now, this was back in 2009. To put that in perspective, President Obama had only been in office for a couple months, all right? George Bush had only been out of office for a couple months, all right? That's how long ago this was. And Trump was the only one trying to help put this man behind bars. Long before he ran for president, long before anyone knew who Epstein was. So that's why I write off Donald Trump when it comes to Epstein. If I had found that Bill Clinton had tried to help prosecutors put Epstein away years ago, I'd write him off too. But I didn't find that for anyone else. For everyone else, I just find them covering it up and dodging it. The other reason is that he's the only reason I know who Epstein is. Right here's Qanon, the crazy poster you all claim to hate, posting about Epstein back in November of 2017 and hasn't stopped posting about him ever since, imploring us to dig. Clearly, Trump doesn't like this guy, all right? You know, Trump, the guy who, since he's gotten into office, Jeffrey Epstein has been outed, disgraced, arrested, and then killed. Wow, what a coincidence. And not for nothing, I don't believe he's dead for 1 minute. I mean, there wasn't even a funeral. Just, oh, well, he hung himself, and then the news literally dropped it the next day, and then, bam, the news conveniently shifts to 24 hours a day secret whistleblower coverage. But especially since you have mainstream outlets like The Daily Show, of all things, joking about the Epstein didn't kill himself meme.
Hillary, I have to ask you a question that has been plaguing me for a while. How did you kill Jeffrey Epstein?
If they're allowed to go with it, that means they're just trying to steer you away from something else. And what's the only other thing it could be? What purpose could going along with that meme serve other than just letting people think he's dead when in fact they broke him out? and that's just speculation on my part, all right? I don't want another article, but why was that meme popular in the first place? Because QAnon followers spammed the internet with it, okay? That's who kept the Epstein story alive while the news completely dropped it. Anons, but yet they make us out to be the bad guys to the public and even work overtime to make our movement look silly and cultish to scare off normal people when we're just like everyone else. Yo, if you want to expose all the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world, then jump on board because it's going down. And to further illustrate this point, I'll now scroll down to the second motive behind writing this article, which is to spread misinformation about the Q intel drops in the first place as a desperate attempt to keep the public from viewing them. Here's a perfect example, the very next part of this article. First, what is the QAnon movement? Lead Stories reported on this in a September 2019 debunk titled Fake News. JFK Jr. is not alive and will not replace Vice President Pence as Donald Trump's 2020 running mate. That story addressed the belief by many QAnon followers that the son of slain President John F. Kennedy did not really die in a 1999 plane crash. The belief, I guess he meant they believe, that JFK Jr. has been secretly working with Trump to fight the deep state and a global pedophilia network that allegedly involved many wealthy and powerful people. Let's see, Harvey Weinstein, Nexium, Jeffrey Epstein, 12,000 trafficking arrests. Yeah, Trump fighting to take down a global pedophilia network of wealthy and powerful people is so totally not plausible. Oh my God. But that's not even the main problem with that paragraph. The problem is, what does this have to do with my video? Or even my channel? I've never said JFK Jr. was alive. Not in that video, not in any video. President Trump has never said JFK Jr. is alive. And QAnon, in the one time he was asked about it in December of 2018, almost a year ago, stated very clearly that JFK Jr. wasn't alive. So how on earth could this be your opening paragraph on QAnon? It's textbook slander. 99% of normal people who don't know about QAnon will read this and undoubtedly think that QAnon is the one who claimed JFK Jr. is alive, which sounds crazy, therefore making this a joke that they will never check out. So that first paragraph is a hoax, okay? He continues that QAnon followers have been disappointed as predictive dates for JFK Jr.'s returns passed without an appearance. Again, giving the false notion that QAnon has predicted JFK Jr.'s return. I repeat, QAnon has mentioned this in one single post where he responded with one single word. No. Is JFK Jr. alive? No. No predictions, no anything. Okay? Another hoax. Now, QAnon followers get their messages through a variety of social media, including Twitter, Facebook, and a list of smaller platforms. Q's original method for Q drops, 8chan, wrong again, Q started posting on 4chan and then moved to 8chan, was taken offline in the aftermath of the El Paso, Texas mass shooting of August 3rd, 2019. The shooting suspect used the platform to post his manifesto. Wrong again. The shooter posted his manifesto onto Instagram, which is still up and running, and then someone else posted it to 8chan afterwards, where it was reported and then removed. But that doesn't matter because they still forced 8chan offline anyway. As time passes without promised events, including the collapse of the deep state at the hands of Trump, QAnon followers continue to interpret the archive of Q drops and Trump's words for hope. The Q video appeals to those anxious for the secrets to be revealed. They've already been revealed like 2 years ago. Why do you think the news has been working triple time to write deceptive articles like this and steer people away from them? It's all pretty simple. These people run the world. These are their intel agencies. These are their sub-control groups. How do I know this? Trump told me. And these people have gotten so brazen at this point that they even openly admit the deep state's existence.
Feeds the president's concern and often used term about a deep state being there to take him out.
Thank God for the deep state.
Now, one of the major ways they control the general population is through fractional reserve banking, which in layman's terms is this. The law states basically that you only have to have 10% of the money you loan out in reserves at the bank. So, if someone, say, deposits $100 into said bank, the bank can then lend out $90. They only have to keep 10% of that loan in their reserves. So the person who they then loaned the $90 to then puts the 90 into their account. The bank can now lend $81 from that deposit. That $81 is then deposited again, allowing the bank to now lend $72.90. And this keeps on going and plays itself out until the entire $100 is now representing the 10% of $1,000. $900 made out of thin air. This serves two purposes. It dilutes the economy, causing inflation, decreasing the value of your dollar, and it also siphons more money from the public to the banks, as all those loans collect interest. Interest on money that was created from nothing. All right, so maybe letting the very people who caused the panic of 1907 draft the so-called solution to it in the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 wasn't the best of ideas. I'm just saying. But again, how do I know all this? President Trump told me. This is why they don't want you to look at these posts. He also told me about the Rothschilds. Here's a list of every single Rothschild-controlled bank. Or here's a doozy where he mentions the Black Forest. The Black Forest is where they used to hunt humans, like in the Ice-T movie Surviving the Game. Well, it just so happens that right after he posted that, the Rothschilds scrambled out of nowhere to sell a hunting property in Austria the size of Manhattan for a fraction of its worth. The Rothschilds' banking clan was started by Mayor Amschel Rothschild, who had learned of this fractional reserve banking scam, the scam that was perfected by the Bank of England less than a century earlier. He then sent his 5 sons all across Europe to start his empire. This is why the MSM tries to steer you away from QAnon with wild misinformation of JFK Jr. and mysterious secrets being held back, right? That's why the Q drops are so coveted. He just ripped the veil off for everyone and then sent them to start digging. And that's what I believe the final part of the 9/13/1721 was. You. Because Anons have taken this info and have been digging up heaps of dirt on everyone and everything for the last 2 straight years. That's why these platforms are scrambling to censor everyone. That's why they're scrambling to steer people away from Q drops. They don't want you to see what this movement is truly about, because once they lose you guys, they lose all power. If you really want to fight the evil oligarch and the evil banks, this is the way. Once you realize that Trump supporters are nothing like they say we are, and we all unite, it's over. We agree with things Bernie says. We just don't simply agree with the second half. For example, Bernie says that someone shouldn't have to work 40 hours a week and not make enough money to feed his family. Agreed. Like I said earlier, the banking system is a purposeful scam to keep us poor. But what I don't agree is that the second half, where his solution is to raise our taxes, yes, our taxes, stated right in the debates that not only the rich, but was also going to tax the middle class. Taxes fund these very same bankers and oligarchs you're wishing to take out of power. How is your solution to raise them? Taxes were permanently implemented after Social Security set the precedent to garnish wages, and income taxes were sold as a way to pay back the interest to the Federal Reserve on money they created out of thin air. Money being paid to trillionaires. All right? We should be trying to raise taxes. We should be trying to drastically lower taxes. It's the other side of the whole scam. Collect as much taxes as possible from the public while diluting everyone's savings by creating new money out of thin air. You can't propose to fix one part of the scam by ramping up the other. Here, Nick Rockefeller laid out a perfect example of the oligarch's view on taxes to Aaron Russo in the late 90s.
He was at the house one night, and he would talk, and he started laughing. He said, "Aaron, what do you think women's liberation was about?" And I said, I had pretty conventional thinking about it at that point. I said, I think it's about women having the right to work, getting equal pay with men, just like they won the right to vote, you know? And he started to laugh. He said, "You're an idiot." And I said, "Why am I an idiot?" He said, let me tell you what that was about. We, the Rockefellers, funded that. We funded women's lib, you know? And we're the ones who got all over the newspapers and television, the Rockefeller Foundation. He says, and you want to know why? He says, there were 2 primary reasons. And they were, one reason was we couldn't tax half the population before women's lib. And the second reason was, now we get the kids in school at an early age. We can indoctrinate the kids how to think, which breaks up the family. The kids start looking at the state as the family, as the school, as the officials, as their family, not as the parents teaching them. And so those are the 2 primary reasons for women's lib, which I thought up to that point was a noble thing. You know, when I saw their intentions behind it, where they were coming from when they created it, the thought of it, I saw the evil behind what I thought was a noble venture.
Okay, so the very people who fund these pushes and special interests are the very people keeping the guy who works 40 hours a week and can't feed his family poor in the first place. That's why Bernie pages are still up while QAnon pages get shadow banned and taken down constantly. And Facebook isn't the only place. Right on YouTube, they're fighting against these videos in real time. The way they do it is by controlling the views on their end. For example, if someone sent the video, they can't really help that. If it's shared somewhere, they really can't help that either. So what they do is make sure that no one sees it on YouTube. For starters, using this very video as an example, you have the percentage of views from browse features, which calculates to about 10,866 views. Now, when you compare that to the difference in views from my analytics screen to the play screen, you get 10,826, virtually the same. Now, browser features means YouTube suggested to someone and they watched it. That's what they can control. As you see here, it's being withheld from the view count. Now, secondly, the number of that should be way higher than 10,800 in the first place. I've said it in previous videos. The YouTube algorithm is based on views, like ratio, and comments. Videos that get 70,000 direct shares in a day with a 99.3% like ratio and a ton of comments, all overwhelmingly positive, typically send the YouTube algorithms off. It throws it on the suggested video sidebars, it throws it on the home pages of millions of people who would like said content. They all share with their friends, compounding the system, and even more, and before you know it, your video has 1 million views. And all this for a so-called far-right conspiracy theory. Well, that's a lot of effort for just some silly scam. I mean, people are getting paid for this. Like, whoever's lifetime throttling my views, that's his job. He's getting paid for that. The guy on Facebook got paid to write this article about a 5-minute video I made showing people what QAnon had said about Jeffrey Epstein in 2017, 18, and 19. Even going so far as to put this Wikipedia article on the bottom to scare away any potential new eyes because it's a conspiracy theory. I mean, is anything I've said about the banks, the oligarch, and such refutable? What's the theory part? I don't get it. Aside from the things I've mentioned, the next biggest thing revealed in the Q Intel drops was that the world was run by satanic pedophiles. Well, the FBI just released documents from 1987 about a satanic pedophile cult called the Finders. Well, that's a creepy and very telling name, which had ties to Washington and the CIA. All right, it wasn't a theory then. What changed? What about in 78 when Vice President Mondale and Mayor Koch co-chaired a fundraising committee to get known pedophile Fred Richardson re-elected? Or even just this past week, Joe Morrissey, who was indicted on felony charges of possession and distribution of child porn, was elected Democratic state senator in Virginia. What about the McMartin preschool scandal, where kids were reportedly being used for satanic rituals and were getting sexually abused? Or, of course, Jimmy Savile, serial child rapist and good friend to the crown. And sure enough, here we just learned Prince Andrews has a huge connection to Jeffrey Epstein. Here's a case where the king and queen were accused of kidnapping children in Canada.
These include a Transylvanian count who is working to conserve some of the most ancient of Carpathia's medieval villages, and His Royal Highness Prince Charles, who can trace his ancestry back to Romania's dark and distant past.
The genealogy shows that I'm descended from Vlad the Impaler, you see. So I do have a bit of a stake in the country.
Dracula, a name that inspires horror and fear. A bloodthirsty murderer immortalized in fiction and in film. The incredible legends of the vampire, passed along in folklore, myths, and Irish author Bram Stoker's best-selling novel, Dracula, did have a human inspiration. A 15th century Romanian prince called Vlad the Impaler. His story and more as we go in search of history for the real Dracula. Since it was first published in 1897, Bram Stoker's Dracula has become one of the world's most popular and frightening works of fiction. This best-selling horror novel has scared up enough sales to keep it continuously in print for more than 100 years. Dracula has continued to fascinate readers with its indelible image of evil, the myth of the vampire personified.
I am Dracula.
The visual perception of Dracula owes much to Bela Lugosi's suave, well-tailored portrayal of the character in the 1931 movie version. But Stoker's Prince of Darkness is an even more frightening figure, a demon with razor-sharp teeth and grotesque pointed features. Dracula is a vampire, a dead man who must consume the blood of the living to survive, and in doing so, recruits them to his ranks of the undead. A monster with the blood of hundreds of victims coursing through his veins is a powerful character indeed. But Dracula's ultimate strength lies in the history invested in him. A history Bram Stoker forged by combining thousands of years of vampire folklore, old-world superstitions, and historical fact in the person of a savage 15th century Romanian tyrant known as Vlad the Impaler.
The genealogy shows that I'm descended from Vlad the Impaler, you see.
Or the Wonderland Club, which was a worldwide child porn distribution club broken up in 1998. Or Jerry Sandusky in the world of sports. Didn't not seem a little odd how many people wound up knowing about it and hadn't done anything? Or 1999, Belgian pedophile underground is outed linking to politicians and high-ranking members of society. 2000, Italian politicians and institutional figures are linked to a pedophile network. Here's World Banker Ronald Bernard stating that they were doing satanic ritual murder of children and tried to get him to participate. That's talking about the World Bank. Here's George Bush mentioning the 1,000 Points of Light, which is a reference to Alice Bailey's prayer to Lucifer called the Great Invocation, published by Lucifer Publishing, who later then changed their names to Lucas Trust. Look at the way Washington was laid out by city planner Pierre Lafont, which means child in French. It's a pentagram with the White House at the tip, I mean literally. Also, the Capitol building is the layout of an owl. The owl in modern occultism is known as Moloch, the Canaanite god of child sacrifice. That's what this statue at Bohemian Grove is, where they perform the cremation of care ceremony. You can see it depicted on House of Cards as just a ceremonial nothing, by none other than Kevin Spacey, who was outed as a pedophile. It's also mentioned in the Clinton WikiLeaks. Here's a statue of Moloch they just placed outside the Colosseum in Rome 3 days ago. So is this a crazy claim to state that the world is possibly run by satanic pedophiles? I would say not. Right. Also, here's 2000, Latvia Prime Minister and other top officials named in connection to pedophilia. 1998, Dutch police uncover a child pornography ring of huge proportions. Here's 2016, this video of CERN employees emerges of them performing a ritual sacrifice. Now, in an official statement, they claim that it wasn't real, but, that it was them, but it wasn't real. Well, it sure looks real. And even if it wasn't real, does anyone know that this is what you do for fun? That's not creepy to anyone? 2015, the entertainment world, here's Jared Fogle busted for child porn. 1997, French police arrest 250 men in a pedophile sting linked to school directors and other types of society. 1991, Chicago, 9 school kids all come independently out and telling of being involved in a satanic rituals. Speaking of Chicago, many believe this to be a picture of none other than President Obama dressed in a Luciferian headdress next to his friend Arthur Davis. In music, Gary Glitter was arrested for using the industry to prey on children. And who's kidding who? The entertainment industry is infamous for this. It's not like this huge secret. In fact, the film called An Open Secret breaks down the rampant pedophilia Hollywood straight from the mouths of former child actors and agents. Hollywood has an obsession with the occult that they don't want to talk about. Or what about this from just the other day in a case from Southern California where women and children were, quote, ordered like pizza. But going back to Washington, in 1990, there was another major link called the Franklin Scandal, where it was linked to child trafficking operation that was stealing kids from foster care in Nebraska. Then to boot, the cover-up was just as bad. Or how about this summer when thousands of bones were found in a Vatican crypt thanks to an anonymous tip? Again, is the claim that there is a massive occult ring that traffics children behind the scenes so crazy? So what was NXIVM then, which was just outed for child sex trafficking amongst other horrible crimes, tied to Hollywood, tied to Seagram's heiress Bronfman, who used this company to funnel money to the Clinton campaign? Or what about the real reason they censored my video? Because it contained a clip from Amy Robach where she unwittingly outs ABC for burying the Epstein story. Now just think about that for a second. Who owns ABC? Disney. That's right, this Disney that hid this in the Little Mermaid advertisement. Or that made this ad with Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. That's right, this Disney that snuck in subliminal programming by putting sex through the dust in The Lion King. Or that where they put sex in the advertisement for Tangled. Or where they wrote out sex in this advertisement on the ice. Or that wrote out sex here in Aladdin. Or snuck orgy onto this Mickey Mouse wallet. It's almost as if this is child programming. Here's a stick figure drawing of two people having sex in Monsters Incorporated. Here's a disgusting still from Beauty and the Beast. Here's a Lion King advertisement where his nose is someone's ass. If you look close at this figure's elbow, you'll find the FBI pedo symbol for boy lover, which just happens to be all over this character. And did you know that Disney's Magical Cruise Line took trips to Epstein Island? That's right, Disney, the biggest child entertainment juggernaut there is, took kids on snorkeling trips to Pedo Island. And they can't say they didn't know who he was because Disney chairman Richard Cook took trips on Epstein's private plane. So ABC stopped that story because it didn't, quote, meet their rigorous standards. You know, like here, where they were caught staging a fake crime scene. As you can see in this leaked photo, with the caution tape is tied to their camera equipment. Whoa, those are some pretty rigorous standards. You know, why don't you use those rigorous high standards to do an investigation into the suddenly totally out of nowhere whistleblower who conveniently shifted the news away from Jeffrey Epstein and take a look at his lawyer, Mark Zaid? Like here, for instance, when he tweeted only days after Trump's inauguration that the impeachment coup had started. Yeah, that's not a conflict of interest at all. And impeachment for what? The guy wasn't even in for 2 weeks at that point. Or here's one where he's tweeting bragging about getting clearances for guys who had child porn issues. Here he's stating that being associated with Epstein is probably a good thing. Oh yeah, that's a good look. Here's a tweet where he states that he likes going to Disneyland by himself as an adult. And here are screenshots from his now scrubbed YouTube channel where his liked videos are the top 10 prettiest Disney stars and one of Selena Gomez from Child to Woman. No, that's not creepy at all. It's no Wikipedia. This isn't some crackpot theory, all right? It's here. It is what it is, whether we want it to be or not. In its summation, in response to this initial article, I will say that it is completely inaccurate hyperbole meant to steer people away from my video and QAnon posts in general, along with running even more cover for Jeffrey Epstein. Alright, I think everyone should just take note that all the mediums who are shadow banning Trump supporters and QAnon right now are the same ones covering up the Epstein case. Just saying. But this author also leaves out the 21, which means he never even watched the source clip. He explains QAnon via a fringe fan theory about JFK Jr., meaning that he's either willingly being deceptive or legitimately has no understanding of the intel drops. States QAnon started posting on 8chan instead of 4chan, which is so easy to find. It's literal proof he did exactly zero research for this article. And on top of that, YouTube actively prevents QAnon and Epstein videos from ever going viral, and Wikipedia labels QAnon a conspiracy theory, even though everything QAnon said to look for has turned up with heaps of information backing up. So much information that it's almost mind-blowing we didn't see it before. So I contend the only hoax here is this wildly inaccurate article. Where we go one, we go all.
It is horrible. And quite frankly, it's illegal to share. We would never share, but I only wish that the public had a full understanding of how deviant these people are with what they're watching as far as video clips and or still pictures. Some of this is a live movie of these children being sexually abused with the screaming and crying and hollering.
I think all our society is run by insane people for insane objectives. You know, and I think that's what I sussed when I was 16 and 12 way down the line, but I expressed it differently all through my life. It's the same thing I'm expressing all the time, but now I can put it into that sentence that I think we're being run by maniacs for maniacal ends, you know. If anybody can put on paper what our government and the American government, etc., and the Russian, Chinese, what they are actually trying to do, you know, and what they think they're doing, I'd be very pleased to know what they think they're doing. I think they're all insane.
Bush is one of the most heinous criminals that's ever walked on the face of the earth. Bush is the man who's been a CIA agent since his college days. He's a member of the Skull and Bones, the Russell Trust. He was initiated in a casket with a ribbon tied around his genitalia, which symbolizes that he's a priest in the temple of Isis. A pagan, this guy. This man is a member of the mystery schools.
Well, he has the outward appearance of a good Christian, church-going Christian, no?
They do whatever they have to be approved by the people, but in secret, they're not at all. This is a man who practices pagan religious rituals, magic. Doesn't matter what you think of all these things. I'm just telling you, this is what he does in secret.
It's called QAnon, a fringe conspiracy theory that some political analysts have likened to an online religion, now making its way to the ballot box. Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Morgan Radford. And Morgan, this seems like it's kind of spreading in ways that you wouldn't expect.
It's spreading and is growing, Mika, because if you've never heard of QAnon, you're actually not alone. Because at one level, it's a wide-ranging, radical conspiracy theory about an evil group of deep state operators and child predators, all secretly at war with President Trump. The theory started less than a year after President Trump was elected, but as we've learned in our reporting, this is actually becoming a political movement, not just online, but also on the campaign trail.
You can find them among the thousands at the president's rallies.
Do you think there are a lot of other QAnon supporters here at this rally?
An incredible amount. We just walked by. Yeah.
Wearing homemade t-shirts and holding handwritten signs. They're supporters of a radical online conspiracy theory known as QAnon.
What does QAnon stand for? What do you all believe?
I believe in America.
Believe that somebody who's trying to awaken the public to what's really going on in the world?
For believers, Q is an anonymous government official who posts classified information about a covert battle between the president and a malicious ring of celebrities, political elites, and the so-called deep state.
Do you believe there's a ring of high-profile politicians who are kidnapping and sacrificing children?
I do believe that.
But for many supporters,
where we go one, we go all.
Q is simply a means to the truth.
Mainstream media. That's where the BS, if you will, comes into play.
So you think Q is real, but the mainstream media is fake?
For the most part, yes, absolutely.
Part of a message that's won before.
And we should also say the president himself has amplified QAnon Twitter accounts many times. Although he's never explicitly acknowledged the conspiracy theory, he has retweeted profiles with the QAnon logo and QAnon messaging in their bios. He's also met and taken an Oval Office photo with a prominent QAnon booster and radio host. So we reached out to the White House for comment, and we have not received a response, Mika.
If you get into the secret history of the cabal, this was rediscovered by Queen Elizabeth, the original Elizabeth that we've heard about from the 1500s. Queen Elizabeth's royal astrologer, a man named John Dee, who is the prototype of the wizard with the long beard, the hat, and what he did was to rediscover, through these ancient documents that were in the Vatican, the technology of how to access what they considered to be spiritual beings that were useful to them, but what we would consider to be demonic or evil beings. These beings need to be accessed through a very complex set of rituals and ceremonies. You cannot just ask for them to show up. You have to follow very elaborate and specific protocols. If you follow those protocols, it's like having an IP address, which is what we use to go online in order to notate a website. Every website has its own IP address. These spiritual beings, such as Baal and Moloch, which they still do ceremonies for today, such as in Bohemian Grove. There is a giant effigy, stone effigy of an owl. That's the god Moloch. The god Moloch goes all the way back to Rome and Carthage, in which they were offering child sacrifices to this god in exchange for power. So John Dee rediscovered the technology of how to draw the magic circles, how to say the right incantations, how to actually do black magic on a governmental level. This is what people are going to have so much trouble with once disclosure happens, is that these people actually practice black magic, and they are very, very good at it.
I've spoken of 1,000 points of light, of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good. We will work hand in hand, encouraging, sometimes leading, sometimes being led, rewarding. We will work on this in the White House, in the cabinet agencies. I will go to the people and the programs that are the brighter points of light, and I'll ask every member of my government to become involved. The old ideas are new again because they're not old. They are timeless. Duty, sacrifice.
1,000 points of light. I never quite got that one. I'm trying to say, what the hell is that? Has anyone ever figured that one out? It was put up by a Republican, wasn't it?
This is a man who practices pagan religious rituals, magic. Doesn't matter what you think of all these things. I'm just telling you, this is what he does in secret.
They were pretending to murder people. And
what was the tone of it, though? Was it jokey, or was it quite...
No, it wasn't jokey at all. It was sick. It's about the only way to describe it. It was sick.
What you're hearing is the first recording ever made of the Skull and Bones initiation ceremony. It has never been broadcast before. 15 new members of the club are being introduced into the macabre rituals of Skull and Bones by the senior students who are about to graduate. The club has what some might see as a strange fascination with death, skulls and bones. There's the chants too, difficult to hear first of all, but including the devil equals death and death equals death.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America?
Kite. Yes, kite. Get ready to read this word the fast way. Get ready. Kid. Yes, kid. Sound it out. Get ready. Kid. Sound it out. Get ready. Kid. What word? Kid. Yes, kid. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready. Steel. What word? Steel. Yes, steel. Read these words the fast way. Get ready. Play. Yes, play. Get ready. Must. Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready. Kite. Yes, kite. Get ready. Kit. Yes, kit. Get ready. Steel. Yes, steel. Get ready. Play. Yes, playing. Get ready. Must.
You prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
What the?
Fuck. Shit.
And Morgan, this seems like it's kind of spreading in ways that you wouldn't expect.
It's spreading and is growing, Mika, because if you've never heard of QAnon, you're actually not alone, because at one level, it's a wide-ranging, radical conspiracy.
This conspiracy involves pornography, drugs, corruption, involves pedophilia, involves organized child kidnapping rings, the Finders out of Washington, D.C., CIA cover, covert operation involved in the international trafficking of children. What are we talking about here? There's a considerable overlap in the United States from the various groups, organizations, individuals, whatever you want to call it. But one of the driving forces behind this movement, the Illuminati, is the satanic cult movement in this country today. Now, when Alina gave me that signed statement, I said, what in the world is this all about? I don't know anything about Satanism. I'd heard the word, and that's about it. From the Bible, of course. So I began my little journey forward. And one of the matters that I developed information about was an individual I learned about was Aleister Crowley. He likes to have his name pronounced Crowley to rhyme with holy. And the Satanists today, and for the number of years in the past, have basically used his philosophy and his writings as a guide. And so let's talk about some of his writings and teachings. And here we have Of the Bloody Sacrifice. And here we have The Blood is the Life. And here on page 94 of his book, it would be unwise to condemn as irrational the practice of those savages who tear the heart and liver from an adversary and devour them while yet warm. In any case, it was the theory of the ancient magicians that any living being is a storehouse of energy varying in quantity according to the size and health of the animal, and in quality according to its mental and moral character. At the death of the animal, this energy is liberated suddenly. The animal should therefore be killed within the circle. We're talking about the satanic circle, or the triangle, as the base may be, so that its energy cannot escape. An animal should be selected whose nature accords with that of the ceremony. Thus, by sacrificing a female lamb, one would not obtain any appreciable quantity of the fierce energy useful to a magician who was invoking Mars. In such a case, a ram would be more suitable, and this ram should be virgin. The whole potential of its original total energy should not have been diminished in any ways. And now listen to this sentence, folks, closely. For the highest spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the greatest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable system. We're talking about human sacrifices. There are, in my estimation, over 3 million practicing Satanists in America today. Now, how did I come up with those figures? I have informants. I have an informant in South Central LA, population of 200,000. Told me there are 3,000 practicing Satanists in that area. That's where the famous, well-known case, McMartin case on the preschool took place. I have an informant in Lincoln, Nebraska. Told me 3,000 practicing Satanists. Lincoln, Nebraska, town of 200,000, South Bay area.
We've learned so much from WikiLeaks. For example, Hillary believes that it's vital to deceive the people by having one public policy and a totally different policy in private. That's okay. I don't know who they're angry at, Hillary, you're right. For example, here she is tonight in public pretending not to hate Catholics. Now, if some of you haven't noticed, Hillary isn't laughing as much as the rest of us. That's because she knows the jokes. And all of the jokes were given to her in advance of the dinner by Donna Brazil, which is, everyone knows, of course, Hillary's belief that it takes a village, which only makes sense, after all, in places like Haiti, where she's taken a number of them. But he made a deal with the devil. She's the devil. He made a deal with the devil. It's true. I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down. America will start winning again, winning like never before. We will bring back our jobs. We will bring back our borders. We will bring back our wealth. And we will bring back our dreams. We do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine as an example. We will shine for everyone to follow. At the bedrock of our politics will be a total allegiance to the United States of America. And through our loyalty to our country, we will rediscover our loyalty to each other. When you open your heart to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice. The Bible tells us how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. We must speak our minds openly, debate our disagreements honestly, but always pursue solidarity. When America is united, America is totally unstoppable. There should be no fear. We are protected, and we will always be protected. We will be protected by the great men and women of our military and law enforcement. And most importantly, we will be protected by God. Today's ceremony has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. This moment is your moment. It belongs to you. It belongs to everyone gathered here today and everyone watching all across America. This is your day, this is your celebration, and this, the United States of America, is your country. What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. January 20th, 2017 will be remembered as the day the people became the rulers of this nation again.